Well, I read in the Brian Bagnall's book, at the end of Commodore, you had, you were spray painting the speed bumps.
Yeah, they were. I was gone by that time.
For many hours.
Yeah. The part you don't hear about is we partied very hard while we were there, and I was the hardest partier of them all. About 50% of the people that worked at Commodore, by my count, are alcoholics. I'm one. I haven't had a drink in this May 29th. It'll be 22 years. And it begs the question, so I introduced myself as a recovering Commodore engineer. So it begs the question whether you had to be an alcoholic to work at Commodore, or Commodore made you into an alcoholic. So we'll never know, but that was kind of the philosophy of the place. So, and so the stories you could hear, they're pretty wild and rambunctious. Anything else?
What was the last product that you worked on?
The 128 was the last product.
The D is on the regular 128.
What's that?
The D, like...
Okay, the D, we did it at the same time. See, when I did the board, these holes were for the D that was yet to come, and the reset switch was there all along. So the 128 was originally supposed to really be a D with the built-in drive, because, you know, in lack of the strategy for marketing, we're doing technical strategy, right? We're trying to supplant it. That's why I say I have no bones about what 128 is. It's just a bunch of engineers trying to throw every trick at it we could. So one of the tricks we could do was we got with the mechanical guys and built the drive into it. But they held the last hand because they could decide what to sell. So at the end of the day, well, I thought the D would have been cool. I could have gotten the regular 128 done a heck of a lot faster if I didn't have to. If you look, there's literally no room for the signal to get through here to here. That's why it says RIP, Kurt Way, Rubino Fish on it, is we hold up in a, if you've ever been in a CAD room, they're very cold, they're chilling, right? The boss had left, and the next boss, the manager, had said, well, he talked like that too. He said, well, the 128's just gone on far too long, it's top priority, so now that I'm in charge, you don't get top priority. So the boss gets back from Italy, he goes, what the hell's going on? You're and this guy got chastised for doing it. But bottom line was we had to work 3 days straight through 24-hour shifts to route basically that area and the other areas. So what happened was I took my air mattress into the CAD area, covered up with my Army coat, slept in there, and I said, tap my foot if you need me. I wouldn't even wake all the way up to tell them. But you watch those PC guys, they're moving. After 7 or 8 hours, they'd slow down. They look like they're traffic controllers. The guy would come up, sit next to him. He starts pointing. Pretty soon, he's making faster connections than the guy in the chair. And he moves over and takes over. And the other guy, I mean, he'd be like this for like 20 minutes. And we did that. It was so cold in that room that I bought some of the Egg McMuffins on Friday, and Sunday morning I was still eating them. But anyway, so that's why it says RIP on the bottom, is exactly the question, because the having to come from behind to get the PCB laid out for the D and the regular 128 at the time. So I would have bought a 128D. I mean, that was good. Yes? Either.
Some of the same chips were used on Apple models and on Commodore models.
Sorry.
Was it ever possible that anyone ever successfully run software from one to the other?
No, because we had a better video architect. You know, they only had 48K, and we had, well, it amounted to, they had this window painting memory. If you ever watch it paint a screen, it kind of does it in segments. The CPM cartridge that I was talking about, I found in a drawer. Pull it out. There's the CPM screen. It's the Apple cartridge. So the engineer that's no longer there had copied the Apple Z80 cartridge, and that's why ours didn't work. He didn't fix the problems. He just transferred them from the Apple to ours. So no, it really didn't. Now I got a call from Bill Mensch, who is one of the, we call him the 5, right? The 6502 guy. Because when I got to Commodore, you could tell somebody important had just been there. There's cigars in the ashtray, the chairs are warm, but they're gone. Right? And like I said, it's a vacuum. They left a unicorn behind, and that's about it. And oh, I forgot what I was talking about. Oh, Mensch, thank you. So Mensch was one of the 5. So he called me during the late part of the 65, or the C128, he said, why don't you guys use my 816, the 16-bit one that's out, right? I said, well, Bill, we better go with the 68,000 like we're using in the Amiga. He goes, no, 816's better, you don't have all those pesky registers. I'm like, excuse me? I'm trying to be, you know, because it still had just X, Y, and A, right? He said, yeah, that's just registers you have to store when you do an interrupt. I'm like, couldn't we just choose not to store them, Bill? So, and his final argument was, well, I've already talked with Apple, and they're agreed to use the 816. I'm like, so you're telling me I should use it because you've been talking to my competitor, and they're going to use it? And that was my call with Bill Mensch. I'm afraid I had to apologize years later. I'm like, Bill, sorry, I was short 20 years ago. And he said, I think you wrote back the story. Robert,
yes, you're talking about how the board was lit for the 128D. Are you talking about the metal 128D or the plastic 128D?
I'm told there was a one later, and I'm told it's got real bad video noise. That's how you tell. Because, I mean, I engineer noise and ground, so that was one of my specialties, and I loved it. And so it would have been probably what was called the plastic one. I should have brought it. I have one. It's the one that would hit you in the leg because the handle was off there, but it had a fan in it.
Yes.
Fan blew the wrong way. That's another argument. I'm like, well, you could hear no, fan blow, okay, no, it's too loud. But heat, no, loud. Udasai, in Japanese word. So no, it was the plastic one. I don't know where that metal one came from later. To be honest, so it's one of my products.
I bought a couple. My understanding is the plastic uses the standard 128 board, and the metal one is the DCR, which is the one that I have.
The DCR is probably where they fixed some of the 80 column stuff, I'm thinking. Gave it like more RAM and maybe so you could ride around it and stuff. Hopefully gave it an interrupt. I thought the later one was just to reduce the chip count. What's that? So any other questions, comments? Why do you think? Yes.
Okay, you mentioned a DX64. Was there ever such a beast? Because I always thought that was like a myth.
The one with the built-in monitor?
The SX64 has one drive, the DX is going to have two drives.
SX, my apologies.
Okay.
My understanding was that there was only pictures of them on it. There was a couple of kind of flyers that went around at the shows that had a picture of two drives, but it was actually fake.
So it's all
really,
that?
yeah,
There's only pictures of that.
I mean, if you've ever taken the top off an SX, there's just so little room in there anyway. You've got to figure how anyone would manage to squeeze another drive mechanism in there.
By the way, we did not know that the C128 was 512K expandable till we were driving we had landed in Las Vegas, we're driving to the hotel, and we saw a billboard. It said, expandable 512K! My boss had made the decision to not let me use the MMU who does the full 512K. And so when we got back, I think it was Marshall Smith, they were all in the room. The guy was always the voice in the back. I never talked with Jackson real directly, but when he would ask a question, you'd hear, come from the back. That'd be me, right, the technician in the back. So Marshall Smith's there, he goes, where's the 512K plug into this thing? And my boss puffed on his cigar and he goes, in the back. I looked over at one of the programmers, we left through the back room, and by the time they broke up the meeting, we're at a whiteboard making it 5K compatible. You know, that's where this thing came from, the RAM expansion. And we did it with DMAs, because I've been told I can't have a big enough memory model to do it. So turns out there was a guy in charge of the C128 called Tom Dow. We called him Tony Dow, like Leave It to Beaver. We saw this whole article about the product manager for the C128 and everything. Only problem was I've never met him. And I've been working on the thing. I had to go down and introduce myself. Hi, Bill Hurt, designer of the 128. What's going on? So, you know, that was our marketing department. They hadn't even come talk to us when we were making this stuff. We ourselves didn't say it was 100% Commodore 64 compatible. They said, and so we said, okay, they just raised the bar, but we're Commodore, we'll do it. We'll try and raise to that. So. Anything else? Yeah, well, you got it.
Oh,
He's been up all night, he's loud.
No, okay, in CVM, were there like certain departments, like one department would just take care of C64 stuff, and one department would take care of C128 stuff, and one department would take care of Amiga stuff?
The only division in the engineering people was, there was the 16-bit Z8000 group. We call them the Z group. Right? They moved very slow on a project that never ended. And then there was us, right? And so the only thing I saw them do that I really appreciated was they stole the furniture out of the lounge when you walked in, and they made a Z lounge. And we loved it. We were like, all right, you're for 1 week. We were called the Animals, by the way, if anybody's ever seen it. We gave them like the privileges of being animals for 1 or 2 days for stealing the furniture. So no, other than the Z8000 people. And my quick story with them is one time I'm sitting next to a guy, and he keeps talking about RAM chips, and he's a new Z8000 engineer. I said, what's up? And he says, well, I can't use this brand of chip for DMA mode. And it was the same ones that wouldn't work in the CPM cartridges, so I knew what was wrong. I'm like, you're missing your raspberry charge time. So it was another one of those instances where I fixed the thing like in less than a minute by just walking by the guy, which, you know, gives you either one hell of a bad reputation or a good one. I'm not sure which one I ever had at any one moment. But so that was the Z8000 guys. I just remember the other thing they did was somebody opened the photocopier, and there's the resume of like the head guy. You know, so they were always looking. No, we were a small group. I mean, literally, the hardware lab fit in this room. You think, wow, Commodore, big, all this stuff, fit in this room. Had like a couple rows of shelves, and you know, lots of. One guy threw away my coffee cup because it had like crud in it. Well, crud can be clean. Right? So every time I walked by, his coffee cup right in the trash. I mean, day after day. He set his cup down. He just had it. That was the second hole in the wall. This guy, I was a little tuned. I told you I was partying and stuff. Well, I was also very tuned, like very skittish. That's another word for it. And they played a game with me to see if they could get me to throw coffee on myself. So I could walk with coffee and go like that. You know, right? Well, I learned to throw the coffee on them. And they stopped playing that game. So one time, though, Jeff Brennicky, the guy who did my coffee cup thing, had just twitched his shoulder. He knew how twitchy I was. And I watched shoulders. He dropped his shoulder on me. And I waited, I heard him do 1.5 steps. I turned, and I pushed him, and I just gave him a shot. And he went right into the wall, sunk right. And the expression on his face as he's sinking into the wall was priceless. And there's the backs of the men's urinals. I'd never seen the back of a urinal. I mean, huge hole right in the hallway at Commodore, right? And it's security cameras like that. You know, everybody, we're like, so the QA guy was telling you, he got to do another hole in the wall, you know, gave us weekly status reports and stuff like that. So, you know, later, it's like, I wasn't sure what my reputation was. I fixed that PLA because of all those, you know, the resistors and stuff I was telling you about, or because I put more holes in the wall than anybody there. So that's another one of the animal stories for you.
One last question.
Okay.
Okay, there you go.
He's come all the way from California. He came from Switzerland.
Do you know how the Educator 64 or the SX64 were developed, or who was responsible for those two Ds?
What is an Educator 64?
The Educator 64 was Commodore's venture into the educational market. They took like a case that looked like a pet, or they put a C64 motherboard inside of it, and a green screen monitor into it. So.
The woman in charge of our educational program, his name was Barbara Feldman. Easy to remember, right? Good smart. And we often said, "Where's our educational program?" Because Apple was kicking our ass, right? It was one woman, nobody was watching her. And she was a nice person. She lost her credibility. Somebody had made mailbox names with blue for the guys and pink for the girls. And she wrote a memo about how bad this was. This was the 70s or 80s. But she lost her credibility with that stupid memo. You know, the answer would have been, just go change it. Right? It's Commodore, just go change it. You're empowered. And so that was our educational thing, was non-existent, as we know. Now, I always wonder what Jack Camille would have done if he'd stuck around. Hey, I'm going to tell one other quick story. I'm turning it your time. You can have a whole next hour. Because what it reminded me of was the second time my boss told me to fix it or you're fired. And we had this thing with CPM either worked or it didn't. or it would fail during loading, and we fixed all of those problems to do it. We became experts in making a Z80 and a 6502 live side by side. And then one day another problem developed, and it just happened to be the right mix of parts and stuff, and it was the final rev of the board. Notice all the jumpers gone except for one, right? So I get in an argument with my boss, and it ended up like, well, then I'll just get somebody else to work on it. Well, you just go ahead and do that. I'm going to take a shower. And that's what I did. I actually took a week off where I went, I got some sleep, I took a shower, I walked outside, realized it's spring. I mean, all these things happen. He comes in my office, and they put one of these turtles, one of these slow-moving guys I was telling you. Actually, the guy I had taken the job over from, who was brilliant, guy's brilliant, just couldn't get it down on paper. He'd worked all week to find out why the C-128 would just crash when the Z-80 was turning on the last day of the board. And he walks in my office on Friday, 11 o'clock. He says, fix it or you're fired. Cool, my turn, huh? I love a challenge, right? Of course, there isn't a single I don't know here. So I found it within about an hour. What I did was, we fire up the Z80 mode, and we're going to talk about oscilloscopes the next one. But what I would do to look for glitches on the address lines, because we're at the very limit of what that kind of equipment can do. So I would stare at the oscilloscope screen until I burned my retina, just stare, and then turn and look at a white spot on the wall, and you can see it dark on white, that retina burn you get. And there was a glitch in there on one of the address lines, A10. And anything gone nuts. There he goes, he's staring at the wall telling us about A10 again. I said, no, there's a stub. This signal's reflecting, not when the 6502 drives it to here, but when the Z80 drives it to here. And if you looked on the PCB trace, there's a stub. Well, stub's like if you ever see water raced around a tray and it bounces off the end. Picture it bounces just wrong, right? They thought it was nuts. And so now it's 1 o'clock, and I've got the answer that they waited all week for, and I said, look, I put this redundant wire. This is a production unit. This made it in production. If you unsolder this wire, it's still continuity. There's still a trace there, but this is a different one. When you have two routes to the same place, that water can't reflect when it gets there. It keeps going around. So he's like, you're getting fired, man. I'm fine. Well, the way we would prove something to actually work in production, for production, we did a run of 10,000 over the weekend, which would be a production run for a lot of people, and they're just trying to prove Herd screwed up, with this run of 10,000. So all the engineers had to come in and couldn't fix it. They're on the line proving. I mean, we had to run 10,000. That's a lot to sit there and run. And I remember the guy said, how come I am here doing this and you're standing there with a beer in your hand? I found the wire. So it made it into production. That wire is there because there's a reflection on the Z80. But can you imagine if that didn't work? I mean, we were always just by the skin of our teeth. Yet it worked, and not a single unit failed from that 10,000. So it's, and as you can imagine, the technician's getting drunker as the day goes on. And then finally, the same engineer, one of the technicians, just looks at me and goes, blow me, call me. He's holding like that. And his wife was there, and she's like, no way, man. Not that big. So that was one of our sayings. We'd walk around, if we didn't agree, it'd be like, blow me, call. So sorry for the bad story there, but that's from that weekend. Anybody else? All right, I really appreciate y'all listening. This Commodore meant a lot.